Well, that has all changed, and changed to the tune of probably tens of millions, at least, who've bought into TeamSnap. Tammy Granato, who was on, I would say, about a month and change ago.
Cammy was on with us,
wonderful story. So we'll do that. And here's a look, exactly what TeamSnap can do for you. And there you have it, TeamSnap. And you're probably looking at it, wondering, what does it do? What is it about? How can this possibly help the organization of whether it's my daughter's, what are they called? The dinosaurs?
Yeah, we're the
Triceratops?
Yeah, exactly. I coach T-ball team, Ken. So first, second year coach. Last year was my first year. So the team is out there again, and we're ready to go in about a month's time. It's going to get a little bit warmer than this. It's usually a little warmer than this in Toronto. And welcome to the city. Good to have you.
Yeah, Ken McDonald.
I like the team name, by the way. Mine was the paper bags this year. So yeah.
Ken McDonald is the what do we say? The chief growth officer. So is this something that you've coined? I'm not familiar with a growth officer, but it's something that I know that you are very well respected in doing, and certainly with TeamSnap, they're aware of that.
It's kind of a new title you're seeing these days. So I run sales, marketing, and analytics at the company. Basically, I'm in charge of getting us more customers. That's kind of a simple way to say it.
So if people are asking TeamSnap, what is it? What is the explanation of it to those who have never heard of this before?
Yeah, it's really so that it's an app so that as a parent, you know where you got to be, what uniform the kids got to wear, who's paid their tournament fees, just kind of where you got to be.
It's almost like an assistant coach in a sense, isn't it?
Yeah, it allows everybody from the players, parents, and coaches to focus on the sport itself and not have to worry so much about the logistics and the communication, and really just kind of have fun with the sport.
And you're dealing with an industry, and we're talking about youth sports, that is a multi-billion-dollar industry. How has it jumped that fast to when we were kids and we all played sports as kids, and now it's everywhere, and they're playing year round too. And we're talking about sports that play year round. Before, I play hockey for 6 months.
Oh yeah.
Then it was baseball or soccer. Now it's that full whole hockey team.
Absolutely.
Same thing with every other sport.
Yeah, and it has changed, and it is big dollars. I mean, I've seen that, I think the lowest number I've seen for North America is $20 billion, and
Wow.
I've seen some that go quite a bit higher than that. I mean, I think there's just more options than when we were kids. I mean, most of the options when we were playing either was involved with school, or you practice once and then you play once on the weekend or something
Sure.
like that. And now, I mean,
They play like pros now.
Yeah, I mean, they play or practice pretty much every day of the week. They're traveling to tournaments all over the place, and that's very common. And I don't think I think overall the option to do that is a really good thing. I mean, because there are some kids who when you've got kind of the neighborhood leagues, they're just blowing it out, blowing away all the other kids. And for them, they need to go to kind of the next level or two up. So that's kind of what I think drove it in the first place. But you do have to match up with what level your kid's playing at to make sure that you're not putting them over their head.
Well, it's a tremendous communication tool, I mean, to begin with. And what you can do within that app is also probably pretty extraordinary compared to the old days of, did you phone Mr. Jones? When's your practice? I don't know. Bug me. I don't remember. Do you find also, are we talking NCAA? University level using this?
Oh yeah, we've got all different levels. And first off, about 70% are the teams are kids, 30% are adults. A lot of softball, a lot of adult hockey, And then in terms of more competitive, we've got some pro teams that
really?
use us. There was a pro hockey team in Warsaw that was doing a lot with us, and so definitely a lot of collegiate teams. Having said that, there are a lot more kids that are playing hockey or soccer when they're 5 years old than there are collegiate teams. So our focus is definitely on where the most people are playing sport than necessarily on the collegiate and pro teams.
So how does TeamSnap as a company compete and thrive against competitors like Jerry Jones has something that is up against TeamSnap? NBC has their own little program. Yep. How do you guys compete against, I guess, some of the heavyweights of the media industry where you guys are trying to build your way in and push those guys around instead?
Well, I mean, we actually had a lot of market share from, well ahead of some of those companies. And a lot of it came from, we built this company to solve our own problems.
Sure.
And a lot of the people who built the company, their expertise was building apps that were really easy to use. And our approach was always that if the customers couldn't figure it out, then that was our problem. So as a result, if there's a company that goes through the Apple Store and rates all the 2 million apps out there based on, ranks them based on the ratings the customers give, and we have been as high as the 6th highest app out of all 2 million.
Oh, wow.
By comparison, the Bible is number 1. So that spot is kind of locked down.
They have a couple years on you, don't they?
Yeah.
And a lot more writers.
So, it's just customers really love the app. And that has always been our approach to go into the market. If you do that, it's hard to go wrong.
So for those that want to acquire, so this is something, so let's say it's a brand new team. It's a guy like Dave, and you're trying to organize your daughter's T-ball team. So what is the process for those watching here today thinking, this is a really good idea, I want to check this out? How are they going to do this?
If you're an individual coach or team manager, you can just sign up on the website. There's a free trial, and then there's either a free plan or there are paid plans that cost sort of a minimal amount per month. And you can also do the same thing in the apps themselves. You can go pull them down from the Apple Store or Google Play. The other side is if you're coming from, say, an association or a club that wants to use it, you can go to the website, and then usually you're working with one of our specialists on that. You can sign up to have the whole club on, and that's a little bit of a different conversation. Say, hey, I've got 100 teams. I want them to all use us. Want to collect all the money for the upcoming season, that kind of thing.
Sure.
And I would think that if I'm part of one of those organizations, if I have, let's say 50, 70 of 100 teams, and again, in order to understand where sometimes tensions arise, it comes from the lack of communication or poor communication, or how come that person said this when that person, this clears all of that up.
It does, especially if they do a good job of sort of broadcasting the expectations of the parents. I think, what you're talking about is sort of the cross between expectation setting and communications. And TeamSnap definitely makes it a lot easier to do that. So if you sort of tell parents, hey, first game's coming up, here's the behavior, here's kind of the background of the club, and here's how we're planning to run it, and you're sending those messages out kind of before and after the game, that can really, as you said, clear up a lot of that. But it's not just, to be clear, the tool goes so far that the club definitely has to be setting some of that expectation.
Well, Dave, how old are the girls?
4, 5, and 6.
Yeah, he's throwing bats on the field just so during the game.
I'm kind of a Lou Piniella.
Yeah, I was going to say Bobby Knight is one of what is going on over there. But again, you talk about, I guess, what I'm talking about, the genesis or sort of the idea that this is going to happen. Who did this? Who came up? What is the brainchild of who? Is this yours?
It is not mine. There were actually a couple of different guys. So one of them on our team, Andrew Berkowitz, who he was building websites by day, and as I was alluding to earlier, kind of his specialty was making sites that were very easy for people to use, and he had he wrote the early code to make this happen, and was for one of his teams. And then he got connected with our CEO, Dave DuPont, who's a business guy. He'd come out of Harvard Business School, and he was looking.
I've heard that's good, by the way. Harvard.
Yeah,
I wrote that down the other
good
day.
Things about that. And the two of them connected, and they were just a really good match of kind of bringing that product side with the business side, and kind of away they went. And I got involved shortly thereafter, first as an advisor, and then helping them grow the business.
Well, let's hope those Garfinkel Twins or whatever they're called. Let's hope they don't claim that they did it first. What are those freaky kids? Aren't they also from?
I know they were
Van den Voss and whatever they are.
Facebook.
With
We did
Facebook, yeah.
Facebook first.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
The Facebook.
Yeah,
No,
right.
Exactly. Your relationship with Hockey Canada, why the partnership and how does that work? And that's obviously a big feather in
Huge.
your cap, considering what this country, Canada, is all about.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hockey was how we really got a lot of penetration in Canada. We actually have 8 times the penetration in Canada that we do in the States, and a lot of that just came from because it was a really good fit with hockey. I mean, nobody wants to get to practice at 5:30 in the morning if you're if that's the wrong time.
Yeah.
So we actually we started chatting with Hockey Canada, and we realized that 80% of the teams that are part of Hockey Canada are already using TeamSnap. So we basically at that point said, you know what, it's time to, and they were looking to modernize the technology that they use, and we said, this feels like a pretty good fit. You know? So that's kind of where it started, and the goal is just really to streamline the whole process from kids registering in the fall to the communication stuff that we've been talking about, and then all the way down at the team level of just kind of coaches staying involved, or in communication with the parents, letting people know where they got to be, all that kind of stuff.
So what's the feedback then? Like, how does that work? Because I assume an app like this, because it's got a lot of moving parts, a lot of moving pieces to it, but I would think input from those that use it must be very, very constructive, I would think.
Oh yeah, and people are not shy about it, certainly. I mean, one of the pieces of that, obviously there's social media and the app stores and things like that. But we've always, from the early days, had we overinvested in support, and we had support 24, well, not quite 24/7, but 7 days a week, almost every hour of the day, and people would write into us and just give us lots of feedback. And actually, in the early days, everyone from the CEO on down was on support. So there was a lot of communication that way, and that was a lot of how, in the early days, we sort of figured out what worked and what didn't. And again, as I talked about that cultural part, that the CEO was very clear, look, our cultural value is if people don't understand the product, that's our problem. We screwed up. And I don't think a lot of tech companies necessarily take that approach.
Well, I'm sure it led to a lot of interesting moments early upon its inception, I would think. But it is, again, when you think about, from the business standpoint, where are the biggest numbers? And as you said, do you look at pros and NCAA? Well, I would think even things like youth soccer in U.S. soccer programs across the country, millions upon millions of kids. I mean, this is the one thing that, hockey, grassroots, and soccer to a degree, I would say, is also probably a growth sport here. But in the U.S., as much as Europeans don't want to hear about it, the numbers must be just staggering that must use a service like this.
Yeah, I mean, we're between 15 and 20 million users worldwide in 196 countries, and soccer is the number one sport. With the exception of hockey, pretty much everything else follows the kind of how many kids play, or adults play that sport.
Sure.
As I mentioned, hockey's kind of the one exception where we just see above average adoption because of some of the logistics that we talked about. So
what's next for TeamSnap? Anything on the horizon?
Well, I think a lot of the focus is some of the things that we've sort of alluded to, in that we started as a product for individual coaches and team managers, and now what we're seeing a lot more of is sports organizations saying, I want to use this for the whole thing. I want to just collect the money up front. I want to get the waivers, build the website, send the emails to everybody, have a tool for the coaches to make sure everybody's on board. And there's a lot more around that, and particularly around the payment side. As the sports have gotten more expensive, has gotten to be more painful for a lot of these organizations. And if they don't collect the money properly, they're in deep trouble. So that certainly is a big area. But that whole helping the sports organization is growing like crazy. We grew in that area. We're pretty much doubling in that area, from a revenue standpoint right now, which is really exciting for us.
Now, personally speaking, we should tell everybody about your book. You are a successful author, a marketing expert, from what I understand.
I'm not a successful author, but an author,
Ooh, wow.
There's a couple of them in the room.
My offensive book that went out a couple of years ago. We'll trade books. We'll see if we get ideas from each other.
Yeah, sounds good.
You use a lot of those principles in working with TeamSnap, or is that something a little bit different when it comes to
it came out of the book came out of TeamSnap. So I've been involved with a couple of different businesses that have scaled to, kind of million. One case it was $500 million that we sold through the web, and another business that was 12 million users, and now with TeamSnap, where we're closing in on 20 million users. So I just periodically get questions from people, actually on a fairly regular basis.
Sure,
hey, what do I do to kind of scale businesses up into this
I'm
range?
about to ask you what about this show right away.
Sure. And so I used to have like 8 pages of notes that I would give people, and I always felt really disorganized about it. And then at one point I said, I'm going to just kind of clean this up, and I realized, I'm getting partway, to having a book. So, and I had a buddy who was sort of in the same place, and luckily he had previously been a professional author. So we just teamed up to write the book and basically put down all the practices that we'd use to scale up TeamSnap and some other businesses.
Should tell everybody listening, because it is a long title. It's called "How to Acquire Your First Million Customers: Scaling Your Online Business by Laying the Foundation of Growth." So that's by Ken McDonald, and just a little plug for your book.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, so now that we realize you're smart, and we have a lot of not smart people because you're looking at 2 of them, and certainly he doesn't count, even though he thinks he's smarter than us. What's school for you? What's university for you?
Where did I go to school?
Yes.
I went undergrad Dartmouth, and then I went Stanford for graduate school.
Oh,
now that doesn't mean they're all smart people there, but
so you're a cardinal, which, by the way, is a big tree. Yeah, as we've come to find out.
That is not the best mascot,
no.
But there was at one point that the students did vote for the steaming manhole covers. That was the mascot they wanted, and I definitely was more supportive of that.
You watch a Pac-12 game, and I'm like, what's a pine tree doing on the sidelines? Who lost that bet? And so March Madness is big for you. No, I would think that the Pac-12 has not had a particularly stunning year this year. I look at even Bobby Hurley's team. Arizona State has fallen off a cliff. Neither the Buffaloes nor the Rams are going to be making any appearances, and even USC, UCLA. It just has not been a West Coast kind of year, but it's been a little bit of a goofy year. Are you an NCAA guy?
I do have. I wouldn't say I'm huge into March Madness. I have season tickets to the CU Buffs, and obviously watch my alma mater passionately. But that's probably in basketball about as deep as it goes. I mean, I'll watch.
So do you cheer against, for instance, I don't know, Harvard or Yale? Do you have
for sure, for sure. That's an easy question.
Oh, fantastic! Once again, TeamSnap. If you're just hearing about this for the first time, I would say certainly do your due diligence and investigate. Just even in the background of we've heard today from Ken just how successful it is, and we'll only keep on going because in terms of the organizing of that many pieces. I mean, I have not coached little ones beforehand, but as a high school football coach, you're constantly dealing with. Well, I didn't know we were supposed. I mean, that's just kind of the drill. This cleans a lot of that up. And as you say, if you're an organization that wants to take responsibility for parents' conduct, the conduct of your athletes, of your children, this lays a foundation where all this can be crystal clear in terms of its communication. But in terms of organizing, this is fantastic. So we appreciate you coming in here today, Ken.
Absolutely. And see, even at my level, Ken, not only do I have to organize practices, games, everything like that, but I also have a list for which parents are bringing the snacks, and that's critical too. And you can cover that with TeamSnap.
There are a couple different options in TeamSnap exactly for that. Trust me, that topic comes up an awful lot.
There
it's
you
amazing
go.
How and that actually does go very much to the essence of the tool, was so that people could focus on coaching and not worry about the snacks.
Bingo.
And that kind of stuff.
If Mrs. Smith is bringing the cupcakes at the end of the day.
Exactly.
So.
Can you put that in there? Bring cupcakes?
You can
I might set
definitely
up a
put-
team just to get baked goods.
Well,
I got to be honest.
Usually it's fruits and
I'm
stuff like that.
no. This is like,
Granola bars and
I don't know. The coach just said to bring tequila. Who is this coach? Who is this? Bob Huggins?
That's adult talk.
yeah, exactly, that's exactly what it is.
Ken, thanks so much for coming in today. Actually, you know what we'll do, Russell? We'll show the commercial going out as well. It's a small studio, and otherwise they're like,
Yeah.
why are we seeing TeamSnap's back? Well, it's because we haven't prepared in time. But thanks so much for coming in.
Thanks, Ken.
Thank you guys for having me on the show.
Oh, it's fantastic. Well, I'm sure we'll talk again. And if you're not, again, you missed sort of the beginning of it, looking at what TeamSnap is, and they put together a couple of on YouTube. If people want to look at it this way, just how effective a tool like that can be. Here it is. Thanks, Ken.
Thanks.
What? We just become best friends?
Yep.